Good morning everyone! It is a new year and a new wonderful blessed day, and for today my son is making a serving tray. He saw his sister make one, so he set out to make one of his own. I had a piece of cherry lying around, so he used that. First off, he cut a piece of it off with the Mitre Saw. Once the piece was ready, he began chiseling the bark away. It is dark in Canada after 5, but surprisingly not cold for the first time ever, so working outside was fine. He kept chiseling away at it until most of the bark was gone. In this step you want to be a bit careful not to take too much of the wood off. But as you can see from the footage, by the time I got around to getting a new flashlight so that I can film him working, since the old one happened to just run out of batteries, he already took some pieces of the wood off along with the bark. But it is fine and a great learning opportunity. Not to mention, not too much of the wood was taken off anyway. Now that the outer bark was removed, it was time to remove the inner bark from the wood. Removing inner bark by chisel is almost impossible, and using a sander or a wire brush attached to the angle grinder or drill is the way to go. But my son doesn't feel comfortable using the wire brush, so he used the sander. While removing inner bark, there is another layer called cambium. It is quite soft, and I advise you to remove that layer too when sanding the wood, since that layer is usually more moist than the rest of the wood. Cambium isn't a layer that you can really see, but you can feel it if you run your fingers on the wood. Just keep sanding until the wood feels drier than it was before. When my son was cutting the wood initially, it fell, and the crack that was there at the end got bigger. Unfortunately, we let the wood rest in the garage for a few days, and the crack that was already there got even bigger. So my son decided to just cut that part off and get a perfect crack-free serving tray. Now that the wood has been cleaned up, it was time to plane it. At first, when my son started planing it, I wasn't paying attention, so he didn't check to see if the wood was warped or not, and he proceeded to just plane it. Once he was done, I inspected it, and it was warped ever so slightly, nothing noticeable, but you could rock it back and forth just a little bit. So he had to plane it once again, this time with the wedges on, in order to make sure that the wood ends up being perfectly plain. I can't wait for summer when they can be more light. This darkness makes it so hard to woodwork after I come home from work. On his second attempt, the tray was perfectly plain however, although quite a bit thinner due to that extra planing, but the lesson was learned. The piece was almost ready, it was time to sand it, and as always with these things, he started off at 80 grit and slowly moved up to 800 grit. One of the weird things with this cherry is it had some short white lines on it. My son sanded those thoroughly off, however I can't understand what caused those lines. It was a small groove that was just white inside, and this piece had quite a few of them. I had never seen anything like it, so if you guys happen to know, please do tell me. After the piece was properly sanded and almost slippery due to sanding, it was time to oil it. A total of 3 coats were applied. This part is always fun to watch when using cherry. At first the wood seems white, but then with every layer of oil one adds, it slowly turns more and more darker orange. I'm not sure how oil causes it to turn orange though. I understand that the cherry turns orange due to oxidation and exposure to sunlight. However, oil somehow causes it to turn orange really fast. If you do happen to know why, please let me know. And after 5 days of oiling, the last step was just to wax it. That's super simple and easy and probably most rewarding step of all. You finally get to see the final product in all its glory. And with some light waxing, that's it, the tray was finally ready. It ended up being quite good and decent. There are some concaves on the bottom from sanding those white grooves, but I think that added extra character to the piece. Let me know what you think. If you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it, please consider subscribing and maybe leaving a like. I try to release a video every week. If you have any questions, comments, or just want to say hi, that's very welcome too. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye bye!